Have you ever felt that you've given all your trust and sincerity only to receive doubt and hurt in return? How many times have you silently wondered whether the person before you truly cares, or if they're just skillfully playing a role in your life? Could those seemingly kind actions and sweet words be mere facades, hiding personal agendas? Dishonesty in relationships not only wounds our hearts, but also erodes our trust in ourselves and others. Perhaps you want to believe that those close to you aren't taking advantage of you, but then small actions, insincere words and half-truths gradually reveal everything. How can we avoid being swept into a whirlpool of doubt and maintain inner peace when we sense someone's insincerity? In this video, we'll explore 7 clear signs that someone isn't being genuine with you. These lessons will not only help you recognize others, but also guide you on a journey of self-awareness, showing that the strength of a steadfast mind is your best defense against negativity. Before we begin, I have a small challenge for you. Watch until the end and see how many of these signs you've encountered in your relationships. Number 1, they're never there when you need them. Have you ever poured all your trust, sincerity, and effort into someone only to be met with indifference and disappointment? How many times have you wondered if the person you consider a friend truly cares about you, or if they're simply using you for their own benefit? Those sweet words and kind gestures, are they genuine or just a mask hiding self-interest? Betrayal in friendships doesn't just hurt our hearts, it erodes trust in others and even in ourselves. I once had a friend I believed would always be there for me. Whenever she was in trouble or needed help, I was the first to show up, giving her my full support. But when I was struggling, feeling crushed by work pressure and utterly exhausted, I learned the truth. I called her, hoping for comfort and a listening ear. Instead, I was met with excuses. She was too busy or would call back later. That call never came. It was then I realized our friendship only held value when I was the one giving. Another time I faced financial difficulties and asked for a small favor, a loan I thought she could easily grant. But despite her earlier promises of support, she came up with excuses, even though I knew she was more than capable of helping. This was a deeply hurtful realization. The kindness I had extended so many times had never been truly reciprocated. Many so-called friends have a repertoire of justifications for their absence. They'll claim they're busy or handling personal matters, but these are often just excuses for their selfishness. A real friend doesn't create stories to avoid you when things get tough. They show up, even if their own life isn't perfect. Stoicism teaches us a valuable lesson. Don't place your hope in things beyond your control. Don't let yourself become overly reliant on anyone's presence, because ultimately, you must learn to stand strong on your own. When you realize that a friend only comes to you when they benefit from it, don't feel hurt or betrayed. Instead, see it as a lesson in protecting your heart. True friendship doesn't disappear during tough times. It's not based on conditions, but on genuine love and respect. This doesn't mean you need to cut such people off completely. Instead, maintain a safe distance to ensure your peace of mind remains intact. Letting go of a relationship isn't about becoming cold. It's about loving yourself enough to choose maturity and clarity. Number 2, they never reach out to you first. Have you ever felt like you're the one carrying the weight of a relationship? The one always initiating conversations, planning meetups, or checking in on the other person? If so, you might be in a one-sided connection where the effort to maintain the relationship falls solely on you. True connections are built on reciprocity, a mutual desire to stay connected. When someone never reaches out to you first, it's often a sign that they either don't value the relationship as much as you do, or see it as less of a priority in their life. Take Layla's experience, for instance. She had a childhood friend, Sarah, whom she adored. They'd grown up together, shared countless memories, and Layla considered Sarah her closest confidant. But as they got older, Layla began to notice a pattern. Sarah never initiated contact. Every coffee date, every phone call, and every text message was started by Layla. At first, Layla brushed it off, thinking, maybe Sarah is just busy. But as weeks turned into months, Layla realized that if she didn't make the effort, she might never hear from Sarah at all. Curious, Layla decided to stop initiating to see what would happen. Weeks passed, then months, and not a single message came through. The silence spoke volumes. At first, Layla felt hurt and even a little betrayed. Was her friendship with Sarah so insignificant that it didn't cross her friend's mind to reach out? But then she remembered a core teaching of Stoicism. Don't tie your happiness to the actions of others. Layla realized she had placed too much value on a relationship where the effort wasn't mutual. This realization, while painful, became a turning point. Layla decided to focus her energy on relationships that felt balanced and fulfilling. She recognized that real friends don't let you carry the entire emotional load of a connection. They reach out because they care, not because they're reminded to. Why does it matter if someone doesn't reach out first? Because relationships thrive on mutual interest and investment. When someone values your presence in their life, they'll make an effort to connect, even in small ways. A text to check in, a quick call, or an invitation to catch up. These gestures show that they're thinking about you and want to maintain the bond. Of course, not everyone who doesn't initiate contact is doing so out of malice or indifference. Some people are naturally less communicative or maybe dealing with personal struggles that make it harder for them to reach out. But even in those cases, a genuine friend will eventually notice your absence and make an effort to reconnect. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, and the truth is, we can't control how often others think of us or reach out. What we can control, however, is how much energy we invest in people who don't reciprocate. If someone consistently leaves you feeling like you're chasing after them, it's worth asking yourself, am I holding on to this relationship because it's meaningful to me or because I'm afraid of letting go? Consider Daniel's story. He had a colleague, Mark, whom he often invited to lunch. Mark would always accept, and they'd have pleasant conversations. But Daniel began to notice that Mark never initiated these meetups. When Daniel tested this by not reaching out for a month, the silence was deafening. Mark hadn't noticed or cared enough to check in. At first, Daniel felt undervalued, but then he saw the situation for what it was. Mark enjoyed their lunches but didn't see the relationship as important enough to maintain. With this clarity, Daniel chose to step back, reserving his time and energy for colleagues who valued his friendship. Stoicism helps us accept that not all relationships are meant to last or be equal. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." This doesn't mean cutting people off at the first sign of neglect. It means observing their patterns and making intentional decisions about where to invest your time and energy. If you're always the one reaching out, pause for a moment. Let the other person take the initiative. Their actions, or lack thereof, will tell you everything you need to know about how much they value the relationship. And if they don't make an effort, don't see it as a personal failure. Instead, see it as an opportunity to redirect your energy toward people who genuinely appreciate and care about you. Remember, relationships should feel like partnerships, not obligations. By focusing on connections where the effort is mutual, you'll create a network of friends and loved ones who truly value and support you. Number 3, they only focus on themselves. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where it feels like you're invisible? The other person dominates the dialogue, sharing endless stories about their life, their accomplishments or their problems, while giving little thought to your experiences or emotions. It's as if you're not a participant in the conversation, but an audience for their one-person show. When someone consistently focuses only on themselves, it's a sign of insincerity. They aren't truly interested in you or your life. Instead, they view your interactions as opportunities to seek validation or attention. Consider Sam's story. He had a friend, Jack, who always seemed to have something to talk about. Whenever they met, Jack would dive into long accounts of his work successes, his travel adventures, and even his minor annoyances. At first, Sam thought Jack simply enjoyed sharing his life. But over time, he noticed a pattern. Every time Sam tried to talk about his own experiences, Jack would steer the conversation back to himself. For example, when Sam once mentioned struggling with a difficult project at work, Jack barely acknowledged it before launching into a detailed story about his own workplace drama. Sam left those conversations feeling unheard and undervalued. This kind of behavior isn't just selfish, it's dismissive. It signals a lack of genuine interest in the other person's feelings, thoughts, or experiences. People who consistently focus only on themselves may not realize how their actions affect others, but the result is the same. Their relationships lack balance and mutual respect. Why do some people act this way? Often it stems from insecurity or a need for constant validation. By keeping the spotlight on themselves, they seek reassurance that they're important or accomplished. However, their inability to listen or show interest in others ultimately undermines their connections. Stoicism teaches us that true relationships are built on mutual care and understanding. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. Healthy relationships require give and take. If one person is always giving and the other always taking, the bond becomes one-sided and unsustainable. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever shared something deeply personal, only for the other person to dismiss it or quickly change the subject? Perhaps you opened up about a challenge you were facing, hoping for support, but instead received a vague surface-level response, or worse, a story about how they faced something even harder. This is more than just a missed opportunity for connection. It's a sign that the person isn't truly present or invested in your well-being. For example, Maria had a colleague, Linda, who often sought her advice. Linda would frequently call Maria during lunch breaks to vent about her personal struggles and work challenges. Maria, being a supportive friend, always listened and offered guidance. But when Maria faced her own difficulties and turned to Linda for support, she found herself met with indifference. Linda either redirected the conversation back to her own problems or made excuses to end the call quickly. At first, Maria felt hurt and confused. She thought, why can't Linda be there for me the way I've been there for her? But as Maria reflected, she realized that Linda wasn't truly interested in a reciprocal relationship. Linda saw Maria as someone who could provide emotional labor, not as an equal partner in their friendship. Stoicism encourages us to view such experiences with clarity and detachment. Instead of feeling hurt or resentful, ask yourself, what does this behavior reveal about the person's priorities? Am I expecting something they're not capable of giving? If you notice that someone always dominates conversations, rarely asks about your life, or dismisses your feelings, it's a sign to reevaluate the relationship. While you don't need to cut ties immediately, it's important to set boundaries to protect your emotional well-being. A true friend or partner values your perspective and makes space for you to share. They don't just talk, they listen. They ask questions, show interest, and genuinely care about your thoughts and feelings. Reflect on the relationships in your life. Are there people who always seem to take more than they give? If so, consider whether these connections are truly serving you. By prioritizing relationships with mutual respect and understanding, you'll create stronger, healthier bonds that bring joy and fulfillment. Remember, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control. You can't change someone who's self-absorbed, but you can choose how much of your time and energy to invest in them. Seek out people who uplift you, who listen as much as they speak, and who genuinely care about your well-being. Number 4, they forget what you talk about. Have you ever shared something meaningful with someone, an important life event, a personal dream, or even a small but cherished detail, only to realize they didn't remember a single word of it later? Maybe they look at you blankly when you bring it up again, or worse, they pretend to remember but offer no genuine follow-up. This behavior isn't just frustrating, it's deeply telling. Forgetting small details might occasionally happen to anyone, but consistently failing to remember meaningful things shows a lack of interest or investment in the relationship. It's as if your words, your emotions, and your experiences don't hold value in their world. Consider Zain's experience. He had a friend, Ahmed, whom he often confided in. When Zain landed his dream job, he shared his excitement with Ahmed, explaining how much effort he had put into preparing for the interview. For Zain, this job was a milestone, something he'd worked tirelessly for. A week later, Zain met Ahmed again, expecting a follow-up question like, "How's the new job going?" Instead, Ahmed didn't mention it at all. When Zain brought it up, Ahmed looked surprised and said, "Oh, right. I totally forgot about that. Congrats, I guess." The lack of enthusiasm stung, but what hurt more was realizing that something so important to Zain had been so insignificant to Ahmed. This isn't just about forgetfulness. It's a sign that the other person doesn't genuinely see you or your experiences as important. Deep down, we all want to feel seen, heard, and remembered. When someone fails to hold on to the things we share, it's natural to feel undervalued. Why is remembering important? Because it's one of the simplest yet strongest ways to show care. Remembering isn't just about keeping facts in mind, it's about being present in the moment and making someone feel like their story matters. On the flip side, think about those relationships where the other person remembers even the smallest details. For example, Aisha had a close friend, Lena, who always made her feel heard. When Aisha once mentioned wanting to try a new cafe, Lena surprised her weeks later by saying, "How about we go to that cafe you were excited about?" These small gestures meant the world to Aisha. They showed that Lena wasn't just listening out of politeness, she cared enough to hold on to the details. True friends listen not just with their ears, but with their hearts. If you're in a relationship where someone repeatedly forgets what you share, it's worth reflecting on their level of investment. Are they distracted, overwhelmed, or do they simply not value the connection as much as you do? Stoicism teaches us not to place our happiness in others' hands. As Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Instead of feeling hurt or resentful, use these moments as opportunities to re-evaluate your relationships. Zain, for instance, learned to adjust his expectations. He stopped sharing deeply personal matters with Ahmed, focusing instead on friends who genuinely listened and remembered. This shift allowed Zain to protect his peace while nurturing relationships that felt balanced and fulfilling. It's also important to recognize that remembering details in a conversation is a natural outcome of genuine care. It's not a task or obligation. It's a reflection of someone's willingness to prioritize you. When someone consistently forgets what you've shared, they're showing you where you stand in their life. This doesn't mean you need to cut off people who forget things occasionally. Life can be busy, and memory isn't perfect. But if someone repeatedly forgets even the most meaningful details, it's worth considering how much energy you're investing in the relationship. True relationships are built on mutual respect and attentiveness. When someone listens to you with genuine interest, you feel valued, understood, and connected. If you find yourself in one-sided relationships where you're constantly repeating the same stories to blank stares, ask yourself, am I giving too much energy to someone who isn't meeting me halfway? Stoicism reminds us to focus on relationships that uplift us. Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Surround yourself with people who bring positivity and make you feel seen. Cherish those who remember your victories, ask about your struggles, and hold on to the small details of your life. These people aren't just good listeners, they're the ones who truly value your presence. Number 5, they always want something from you. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where every question or gesture from the other person seems to have a hidden agenda? At first, they may seem like a trustworthy friend, asking about your life, your work, and even standing by you during tough times. But over time, you notice their concern is less about you and more about what they can gain. Such individuals often dig into your life, not to understand you, but to find opportunities to exploit. You may have had a friend who frequently asked about your financial situation or job, but when you truly needed support, they were nowhere to be found. Their questions weren't driven by concern, but by self-interest. A friend of mine, David, had this experience. He was close to someone named John, sharing his personal thoughts and dreams, believing he'd found a genuine friend. John often called, showing interest in David's projects and plans. David appreciated the support until the day he needed it himself. During a financial hardship, David asked John for help. Suddenly, John was evasive, too busy, and far less enthusiastic than before. It didn't take long for David to see that John only came around when there was something in it for him. David realized their relationship was one-sided, built on convenience rather than mutual care. Unfortunately, relationships like these are all too common. Some people pretend to be close friends, but only stick around when it benefits them. They vanish when you need genuine support. Stoicism teaches us to recognize people like this and remain calm, avoiding bitterness or disappointment. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to understand others' motives without letting them disturb our peace. Imagine having a friend who frequently turns to you for advice or emotional support. At first, you feel valued, but then you notice that when you try to share your own struggles, they suddenly become busy or uninterested. David experienced this with John during a major work setback. When David reached out, John made excuses, avoiding the conversation entirely. This was when David realized their friendship only existed when he was giving. Stoicism helps us see these situations with clarity. Instead of letting one-sided relationships wound us, we can learn to detach and protect our energy. The Stoic approach is to accept people as they are without letting their actions dictate our emotions. You're not obligated to maintain relationships with people who only take. Instead, focus on connections where there is genuine reciprocity and care. Let go of those who drain you and make room for relationships that truly enrich your life. Number 6, they talk behind your back. One of the most painful experiences in life is realizing that someone you trusted or respected is speaking negatively about you behind your back. For those who embrace Stoicism, facing and accepting this kind of betrayal requires both clarity and resilience. It demands a calm mind that resists allowing such actions to disrupt your inner peace. While there may not always be direct evidence, you can often sense when someone is talking poorly about you. It feels like an invisible thread of tension forms whenever you're near them, a quiet unease that's hard to ignore. You might not know exactly what they said or to whom, but subtle changes in their behavior give them away. A forced smile, dismissive tone, or passive-aggressive gestures. Imagine a close colleague, someone you once trusted, who now seems distant. They still exchange polite words, but their gaze lacks sincerity, and they subtly dismiss your stories. This was Linda's experience. She once trusted a colleague deeply, often sharing her work successes and seeking encouragement. Over time, she noticed that their smiles felt hollow, and her achievements were downplayed with comments like, "Oh, it's not a big deal." Eventually, Linda learned that this colleague had been sharing unkind remarks about her, undermining her efforts to boost their own image. Though Linda was hurt, she chose not to confront them. Instead, she created distance, focused on her work, and protected her peace. Often, you might hear second-hand remarks through mutual friends or passing comments. Those who gossip reveal themselves through passive-aggressive behavior, like downplaying your accomplishments or planting seeds of self-doubt with offhand remarks like, "It's not that impressive, right?" Such actions are designed to undermine your confidence. However, as Marcus Aurelius taught, it is not the actions or words of others that offend us, but how we perceive them. Allowing hurtful remarks to affect you gives others power over your emotions. Instead, let their words pass through you without worry, focusing only on what truly matters. When faced with betrayal, it's easy to get trapped in a cycle of negative reactions. Yet, Stoicism emphasizes the importance of managing your emotions. Ask yourself, does this really matter? Do these words change who I am? With a firm belief in your own worth, you'll see such negativity as mere background noise. People who speak ill of others are often motivated by jealousy or insecurity. Instead of being pulled into their negativity, focus on your own growth and refuse to let rumors disturb your peace. Stoicism doesn't suggest cutting ties with everyone who talks poorly about you. It encourages maintaining self-respect and refusing to let others disrupt your inner tranquility. Remember, no matter what someone says behind your back, their words do not define your value. By remaining calm, steady, and self-assured, you embody the true spirit of Stoicism, a spirit that seeks inner peace and rises above trivialities. Number 7. They act differently with different people. One of the hardest realizations is discovering that someone you trusted is willing to change their behavior entirely to suit their own selfish interests. For those who practice Stoicism, recognizing this is not just a lesson but a challenge. It requires maintaining calm and clarity. People who adjust their words, attitudes, or even values depending on who they're with often lack sincerity. They're not grounded in their principles, and their behavior reflects their opportunistic nature. Imagine having a friend who seems supportive and present during good times, but grows distant during tough moments, like losing a job or facing financial struggles. This was Daniel's experience. Once a successful professional, Daniel was surrounded by friends and colleagues. But when he lost his job, many of these so-called friends disappeared. The warm smiles, caring questions, and encouraging support were gone. Daniel realized that these individuals had been benefiting from his success and moved on when he no longer served their interests. People like this gravitate toward those who can help them reach their goals and quickly abandon those who no longer hold value for them. These individuals are easy to spot at social gatherings. They appear warm and welcoming around influential people, but their behavior shifts when they're with others who can't serve their ambitions. As Marcus Aurelius said, true worth lies in honesty and living in harmony with one's own nature, not in fleeting changes made for temporary gain. When you notice someone's behavior shifting based on their audience, Ask yourself, do they truly respect me, or am I just a stepping stone for their ambitions? If you were to lose your power, status, or success, would these individuals stand by you, or would they drift away in search of someone else? This calls for careful reflection. Recognizing insincerity isn't about doubting everyone. It's about choosing to nurture relationships that are genuine and worthwhile. Stoicism guides us not to rely on the temporary emotions or opinions of others. Instead, it urges us to keep our spirits steady and undisturbed by superficiality. By mastering your emotions, you prevent two-faced individuals from reaching your inner core, a core built on strength, self-respect, and genuine values. Number 8. They don't celebrate your successes. True friends and genuine people celebrate your successes as though they were their own. When someone in your life fails to acknowledge or share in your happiness, it's often a sign of insincerity. It's not about grand gestures. Sometimes all it takes is a heartfelt, "I'm proud of you," or an excited, "Tell me more." Genuine people find joy in your growth because they care about you, not just themselves. But what happens when that joy isn't there? Have you ever shared exciting news, a promotion, a hard-earned achievement, or a personal milestone, only to be met with indifference, dismissiveness, or even subtle jealousy? Perhaps they gave you a half-hearted response or quickly redirected the conversation to their own issues. This lack of enthusiasm can leave you feeling unacknowledged and unsupported, especially if you've been the first to cheer them on during their victories. Consider Emma's story. She had spent months preparing for an important certification exam. Passing it would open doors to new opportunities in her career. When she finally succeeded, she excitedly shared the news with her best friend. But instead of celebrating with her, her friend said, "Oh, cool. I heard that test wasn't too hard anyway." At first, Emma was taken aback. She thought, was it wrong to expect my friend to be happy for me? But as she reflected, Emma realized this wasn't the first time her friend had minimized her accomplishments. In the past, when Emma had shared other successes, her friend had either brushed them off or shifted the focus to her own achievements. This lack of support didn't go unnoticed. Emma began to realize that her friend's inability to celebrate her successes wasn't about Emma. It was about her friend's own insecurities. Some people struggle to be happy for others because they see someone else's success as a reminder of their own perceived shortcomings. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, and one thing we can't control is how others respond to our triumphs. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Instead of dwelling on the indifference of others, Emma decided to surround herself with people who genuinely valued and celebrated her achievements. This change wasn't easy. Like many of us, Emma wanted to hold on to her long-standing friendship. But she realized that continuing to invest in someone who couldn't reciprocate her support was draining her emotionally. Instead, she began prioritizing relationships with people who made her feel seen, valued, and celebrated. Contrast Emma's experience with her other friend, Mia. When Emma shared her exam results with Mia, the reaction was completely different. Mia lit up with excitement, saying, "That's amazing, Emma. I know how hard you worked for this. Let's celebrate." Mia's enthusiasm wasn't forced or transactional. It was genuine, coming from a place of care and pride. The difference between these two friends was clear. While one saw Emma's success as a threat or an afterthought, the other saw it as something to be cherished. This distinction helped Emma understand the value of nurturing relationships with people who are genuinely happy for her. Stoicism encourages us to evaluate our relationships based on authenticity and mutual respect. If someone consistently fails to celebrate your victories or undermines your accomplishments, it may be time to reconsider their role in your life. This doesn't mean cutting them off entirely, but it does mean setting boundaries to protect your peace and emotional well-being. When you surround yourself with people who truly care, you'll notice the positive impact on your own outlook. Their joy becomes your joy, creating a supportive environment that fuels growth and fulfillment. And when it's their turn to succeed, you'll find yourself just as eager to celebrate with them. Let this be a reminder. True friendships are built on mutual care and shared happiness. Celebrate with those who celebrate you. Cherish the people who clap the loudest when you win, because they are the ones who truly see your value. Number 9, they avoid accountability. A strong indicator of someone's sincerity is how they handle their mistakes. Genuine people own up to their faults, apologize when necessary, and work to make amends. Insincere individuals, on the other hand, deflect blame, make excuses, or pretend nothing happened. Think about someone who has wronged you in the past. Did they take responsibility for their actions, or did they twist the narrative to avoid accountability? Perhaps they blamed circumstances, others, or even you, rather than acknowledging their role in the issue. For example, Alex once lent money to a friend who promised to repay him in a month. When the time came, the friend avoided his calls and ignored his messages. When Alex finally confronted him, the friend blamed financial troubles, even though he'd been posting about lavish purchases on social media. Instead of apologizing or offering a solution, he shrugged it off, saying, "You know how life is." Stoicism reminds us to focus on what we can control, including how we react to others' refusal to take accountability. When someone consistently avoids responsibility, it's a sign that they may not value the relationship as much as you do. Rather than wasting energy on such people, surround yourself with those who have the courage to admit their mistakes. Accountability isn't just a sign of sincerity. It's a cornerstone of trust and respect in any relationship. Number 10, they drain your energy. Have you ever spent time with someone and felt emotionally exhausted afterward? Some people carry an air of negativity, constantly complaining, seeking attention, or bringing drama into every interaction. While it's natural to support friends during tough times, when a person consistently drains your energy without offering support in return, it becomes toxic. Energy-draining individuals often frame themselves as perpetual victims. They'll monopolize your time, unload their problems onto you, and rarely, if ever, ask how you're doing. When you need support, they're either unavailable or dismissive. Consider Rachel, who had a friend like this. Every phone call was a monologue of complaints about work, relationships, or life in general. Rachel tried to be supportive, offering advice and a listening ear. But whenever Rachel shared her own struggles, her friend would steer the conversation back to herself. Over time, Rachel noticed how drained she felt after these interactions. She realized this friend wasn't interested in mutual support, but only sought a sounding board for her problems. Stoicism teaches us to protect our peace and energy by setting healthy boundaries. If someone consistently leaves you feeling emotionally exhausted, it's a sign to reevaluate the relationship. True connections should uplift and energize you, not drain your spirit. Closing message. If these signs resonate with you, remember, recognizing insincerity isn't about cutting ties with everyone. It's about valuing your peace and surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care about you. If this video has brought value to you, please like and share it with others who might benefit from these lessons. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insights from Stoic philosophy to help you live a life of strength and inner peace. If you've identified someone in your life who matches these signs, leave a comment saying, "I'm protecting my peace," so I can congratulate you on taking this important step toward a healthier, more fulfilling life. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.